So this week in our course, as you know, we're talking about regulatory and ethical considerations in pharmacy, a really important part of the pharmacy world. And we're really quite fortunate to have with us to talk about these issues Kyle Parker, who's the Executive Director of the Ohio Board of Pharmacy. And so, Kyle, really appreciate you being here, number one.
Oh, my pleasure. And
I'd like to just start off by, here you are, you're leading the Ohio Board of Pharmacy, and if you could just tell us, an understanding that the people who are watching this video are from around the country and even from around the world.
Sure.
So, but what does a board do, and what's the role of the board?
Well, the primary role for the Board of Pharmacy is to protect the public and ensure that pharmacy practice around that protects the public and that it's efficient and effective. That is the primary role of the Board of Pharmacy, as are the primary roles for the states around the country, boards of pharmacy. Okay. So that's basically our mission.
Yeah, so your mission is to protect the public, really.
Correct.
And then, what kind of things do you do to makes you meet that mission? What are some of the specific things that the board does to protect the people?
Well, we first and foremost, we promulgate rules, for one thing, around practice. We also enforce those rules around the pharmacy practice, which is a little unique for different states. Ohio is a little bit unique in the fact that we do have the legislative authority to enforce the rules around pharmacy practice to ensure that the public is safe from unsafe practice or unsafe behavior from licensees or those kind of things.
Yep. So you described that we have rules that get established, and maybe we could just kind of jump to that and think about that process. So, can you walk us through kind of briefly, how a law comes to be, and then how does the board translate that in a way that pharmacists follow certain rules?
That's a great point. To clarify, we can't just create a rule from nothing. Typically, we have to have legislation in place, which is law, before we can then clarify specific practice acts about that law. And that's how that works. So it starts with legislation or statute. And specifically in Ohio, it's Chapter 40, it's 4729 basically is where the statutes come out of. 3719 is the controlled substance legislation. Those are the two primary sources that we draw from for our rules. The legislation is a legislation, the legislative process, which is driven by the legislators of the state, not the Board of Pharmacy. We typically are brought into that process if a law is written that involves pharmacy. And they typically get our input, and many times we even assist in the writing or give them recommendations for that legislation. And then once that legislation, if it indeed passes and does turn into law, typically we would promulgate a rule, which is administrative code, which falls under our administrative section 4729 as well, that clarifies specifics about the practice of how to practice that quote-unquote law that kind of dictates pharmacy, or whatever the issue is around pharmacy. So it clarifies and gives clearer direction for the licensees of how to practice.
Great. So. And I'm guessing that, so in Ohio there are certain numbers that probably every state would have different sort of nomenclature that they would use.
Correct.
But I'm guessing the process is probably fairly similar. The state legislation creates law, you translate that to pharmacy practice rules.
Exactly, and there's a couple different tracks of how that's done. We are statutorily obligated to review all our current rules. This is the track for current rules every 5 years. So typically, yearly, we have a process in place that reviews current rules, 20% of them a year, so that the entire rules are reviewed within 5 years. That process is allows for different pharmacy professionals to be involved in it. Typically, they just ask to be a part of that rules committee, and the board approves it. So it is a very open process. And then when we file the rules, there is a state-specific process for that, which is the JCAR process in Ohio, which is a rule review process, which typically the quickest turnaround time for a rule through that process is about 2.5 months. So that's the process in general for a rule.
Okay.
Once that occurs.
Great. So if we get new laws created, you all help kind of translate those into, and we've talked in our course about a Pharmacy Practice Act that,
Sure.
that every state would have. You help translate those, and then you regularly update them. So it's an ongoing process.
Correct. Absolutely.
Let me ask you this one. So you talk about the boards of pharmacy. You're here to protect the public, and that happens through legislation, through law enforcement activities. And we're going to talk in another video with you soon here about the licensure process. We protect the public through licensure as well. Can you tell me, do you have a sense, Kyle, for how these boards maybe differ across the country? You're here in Ohio. Are things different from state to state?
Absolutely. And the longer I'm in this role, the more I realize how different that is from state to state. The mission is pretty much the same, but how that's done is quite different. There are different types of boards of pharmacy. We are, in Ohio, we're an autonomous board, which basically, we report directly to the governor. In many states, that's not the case, where the Board of Pharmacy may lay under a very large body or number of other agencies where they may not have the autonomy to act quickly. So Ohio we feel very fortunate. Yep. And after talking to other states, that is indeed the case, that we have the structure that we have for the agency. But yeah, the rules differ for each state. Many of them differ. Anything from how many internship hours are required to how disciplines are done. It's very different across the country. And most states also do not have the jurisdictional power to enforce those rules and those laws, which again, Ohio, I believe, is one of 3 states in the country that can do that, where we are given the jurisdiction to enforce the drug laws of Ohio. Most states, it's the state police. So there is a big difference. Yeah.
And that jurisdictional power you described means you all can go into a pharmacy or a clinic, whatever it may be, collect data, create a case, and take people to court, right?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. That's exactly the process. There's 2 different tracks of that. Typically, administratively, it's a licensee. That's what we can take action on, a license. But we also can take an issue criminally as well, and it doesn't necessarily have to be our licensee. It may be anyone that's involved with those prescription drugs. Yeah. So, and that's another unique quality for Ohio.
And only you say 3 boards that you're aware of really have that power.
Yeah, 3 other states, correct.
3 other states. So, Kyle, one other question of importance to me in this course. So we're giving an introduction to pharmacy, and we began the very first week of the course thinking about what is a profession. And we talked about, one of the things we talked about was intra-professional control, and how it's our responsibility as a professional to help really maintain standards for those who are around us and for ourselves. So from your standpoint as a regulator, how do you see that intra-professional control piece? How critical in your mind is that piece in terms of being a pharmacy professional?
It's vital. There's no question. That's a big part of this. To maintain the ethics and the professionalism of our profession, it is absolutely crucial for pharmacists to indeed sort of regulate each other and keep each other in check, to basically ensure that the practice is safe and that it's the right way to do things. Not only is that a professional side of it that I feel, so this is our stance, that pharmacists should be watching their own practice, but we do also have statutorily in rule that basically states if you indeed know that a felony is being committed, that you shall report that to law enforcement, which is in Ohio can be us. It is us. So there's a couple different ways to look at that, but the answer is absolutely crucial.
So there's both an ethical responsibility and a regulatory responsibility in that regard.
Yes.
That's an interesting viewpoint. Well, I appreciate you discussing kind of the legislative process, the rules of the board. Anything else on that comes to your mind as we close this discussion? Anything about legislation or the functions of boards of pharmacy that you'd like to share with us?
Maybe just quickly a makeup of our board, which is another difference between states.
Yep.
Everybody's board makeup may be a little different. In Ohio, it's 9 board members, one of which is a public member. So typically, all of these actions that go through, if there indeed is an investigation, whether it comes from a fellow pharmacist that calls us, or a complaint, or during an investigation that we're in there inspecting, those folks would come before our official board members, which are appointed by the governor to a 4-year term, which can be done. They have the ability to serve 2 terms max, and I think it's a very, very good process in Ohio because it's a jury of your peers primarily, and I think it works very, very well, and it's very fair.
Good. Well, Kyle, as a pharmacist in Ohio and having been here my entire life, I agree with what you said earlier. We're lucky to have the board we have. We thank you for what you do on our behalf, and thank you for being with us.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.